Do you
this?
have
Oh, I think it's episode
171, right?
Yeah, and we're not in the right order, but I'll let it pass this time. Episode 171, This Life in Tech. I'm Jason.
Pointing out the chaos immediately, Dan.
And I'm confused now, and I'm TK.
So we've been talking for 20 minutes. We started with politics, and then we got into this deep discussion about nutrition, health, working out. Keep going.
Yeah, so evidently TK's now a strict vegan.
I don't say that. I'm trying something new, right? and I caution to say that because it's funny even talking about it here. It's like the old adage. It's like 3 vegans walk into a bar. How do you know? Because they tell everybody in the first 3 minutes. Just
oh my God.
Like in most, it's with CrossFitters or anything else, right? For the most part,
category. It took you 22 minutes to tell us.
But we're talking about making changes, right? And to your life and what you do, and it's life is an experiment, right? And it's when we say live it to the fullest, life is an experiment. And what happens to your body on a cellular level when you change things? And so,
when did you start plant-based? But when did you start making this change?
So about 2 or 3 years ago, people call it keto. I don't really call it keto. Because it's, people may or may not know, I have really bad arthritis, and psoriatic arthritis, which is it's trying to corral a very high autoimmune system. I produce T cells on an epic pace. And the way the doctor explained it to me years ago is that, and it's obviously you have trillions of these things running around, but let's get a manageable number. If an AIDS patient has 3 T cells and the average human walking around has 100, I have 1 million. And so part of how this thing is, these T cells always want to make you healthy and they want to fix you, right? That's their job. And when they find mechanisms of injury, they get in there and they try to fix. Well, when that's in your joints and things, that causes the inflammation. And so prevailing thought, certainly in the last 20 years, was let's do something to stop further damage. And that was usually through methotrexate, which was really damaging for your liver. And in fact, when I questioned it and I started taking it, they were like, well, worst case scenario is 20 years from now, we'll just put you on a liver transplant list, which I found extremely disconcerting. And while I started taking it, the concept of getting off it was on top of mind, right? But how to do it and not with the same, whatever they're thinking that stopping bone damage or further damage to your joints was more important and a bigger benefit than you having to get a liver transplant. I didn't tend to share that thought, right? But the botanicals that they were using at the time, kind of with the Emerald and then Humira and some of these things, what they do is they kind of encapsulate the T cells to get them down to a manageable level, and you excrete them. Psoriasis is a manifestation of that T cell. They don't know where to go, and so it comes out to your thing. So over the years, wanting to get off all those medicines, that and stuff, because I had a heart issue and stuff like that. And as you guys know, when I was at Silent Circle, I was busy not being thin, and a lot of it was.
Well, that's just why I put people like Brandon next to you all the time.
Yeah, thank you. Because the old Rodney Dangerfield line: if you want to be thought of as thin, hang out with fat people. But it's like I looked at it when I left. And you basically look at yourself in the mirror. We've talked about this before, right? You have two mirrors in life: one of how cool you are, and another one how cool you think you are. Mm-hmm. Well, one day I looked in the one of how cool I really am, and I wasn't so cool, right? Internally for a lot of reasons. And so I said I have to make a change. And some of that is slow. Some of it was forced, right? I walked into a hospital and said I don't feel well, and they're like, "What's happened?" Something's going on in my chest, So immediately you're at the front of the line. And then I get my first set of labs back, and I was like, I am amazed I didn't have a heart attack. I mean, to this day, if I could find those, I would like to post them, frame them, and get them up there and go, this is the poster child for not taking care of yourself. And as you guys know, for the most part, I'm not an easy button guy, right? I don't expect life to just walk up and take care of me. But after 2 years of eating and drinking way too much, and working effectively from 6 a.m. till midnight, with the last 4 of that being 7 at night till midnight, drinking and eating like they're never going to feed me again. I was like, I had to make a change. And so a lot of it started off with just portion control, right? Both in what you're not drinking and what you're not eating. And then it was, okay, how can I now, what can science do for me? What can biology do for me? And so a lot of it was like, change your diet. What causes inflammation? Get rid of that from your diet. And so I ended up largely sort of keto, but I was never eating like a lot of bacon. Like where the bad side of keto, people are like, oh, you can eat whatever you want. So people are eating a pound of bacon, right? Because you need fat, and you need protein. So that's the thing.
I love bacon, but I don't know that I could eat a pound of bacon.
Well, but there are, you and I both know there are people that can do that, right? And so over the years, I've gotten to the point where I was on, I think, 11 medications, and I'm effectively down to one to manage one to manage T cells. And I don't even consider that a medication. But it is. And now, instead of having to get that shot and give it to myself once a week, it's once every quarter, right? It's a much more effective in the immune train. It's closer. It's at a closer point to the T cells, right? So it's a much more effective treatment. And then I'm on a low grade blood pressure medicine, and all the rest of it is gone. But what did you substitute, right? You substitute a healthy lifestyle, substitute not over drinking, and working out, as well as diet. And it's like part of the Hippocratic Oath or Hippocrates says, "Food, heal thyself." Right? That's how you're going to do it. And I don't take as empirical some of the the loony stuff about plant-based diets and things like that, but there's nothing that says I shouldn't try it. And so right now I'm getting labs at another in another 6 months, and I want to see, hey, really great labs the last time, right? All my inflammation marker, everything was down. And I want to see, hey, what can this do? It's an experiment more than a lifestyle, right? And
right.
Am I saying for the full 6 months I won't go and have sushi or something like that? No, but and that's why I say I hesitate to say that I'm like where Dan says, oh, vegans. What's that?
Right. But I think that's the key difference. You're said that you're doing a plant-based diet, not a plant-only diet.
Right. I mean, right now I am, just because I'm trying to see if it's manageable, right? And especially if you're going to lift and you want to get size and you want to get big. I mean, there's quite like the thing that really got me like interested in looking at it is right now, and this is kind of an average for the NFL, but there's I've seen these folks talk about it. There's 14 players on the Tennessee Titans that are all plant-based.
Yeah.
Right. And they're not like receivers and the kicker.
No.
Right. They're defensive tackles and everything like that. Dudes that got to be 300 plus pounds, or they're 270 and they run like the wind and they can hit you like a truck. Right. And linebackers and everything like that. So I want to see, like, is that possible? And to tell you how I got started on this is when I said, hey, okay, now I've lost a bunch of weight. I'm like all the things internally, right? Because everybody wants to fix the outside. Right? People want to start lift. They want to lose weight and start. Well, everything internally I thought was more important to fix. Get your labs in control. Make sure your body can handle the stress, and then dive headlong back into working out. Because I don't do anything. I'm not just gonna casual. I'll go a couple times a week. Right? Both my personality. Like I'm either all in or I'm all out. And so then it starts the transformation, and both in timestamp photos, kind of against knowing what I was eating at the time, and being able to balance that out, and then getting things into a spreadsheet with food and supplements where you can take, and pivot tables and stuff like that. It's like using yourself as an experiment.
Yeah,
right?
That's exactly what it is.
There might be I might be sending you guys a photo next week of me eating a steak, right? or whatever, right? But it's okay, what can you change?
Would it be the Wagyu? Would it be elk? I mean, what kind of steak are we talking about?
I haven't thought that far ahead, Dan. Like, I don't have menu choices out there. I'm just saying that that's why I say I don't say vegan. It's like plant, because I'm trying to look at an outcome, not create a lifestyle, get attached to a lifestyle, right? And I think most people, they get attached to two things. They get attached. They want to be part of a tribe, right? And because that's healthy, that's good for people. And they want to be part of a tribe that's cool, right? However they define that, right? whether it's, hey, I'm a hardcore gamer and this is the best gamer tribe, I'm a fitness tribe, I'm a religious tribe, or whatever, right? And they define that, and they want it not to hurt.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the struggle, right? And I think most people, if you're going to say what defines greatness, it's the struggle, right? Because you have an appreciation for what it took to get there, right? It's why trust fund kids largely aren't as successful as their parents, because in large measure they were given it. Now, do I think most of these young billionaires today are, like Warren Buffett effectively gave his kids $90,000 and said, that's all you're getting. Go figure it out. Make $1 million, make $1 billion with it, but here's your head start, right? But most of the younger billionaires are all, I'm not doing this for my kids, I'm not doing this. Are they doing it because they don't want them to become trust fund kids, or are they virtue signaling?
It's probably a measure of both, but
right? But that's where and it's, I just, like, for me, it's my hobby right now. I find it fascinating. I got nothing better to do because I'm barricaded. It's like you're locked in other than go get groceries. So the one thing I'm doing is worried about groceries, and it's the one thing I'm free to go do anytime I want. So it kind of works out.
Well, and I think more to the point. Yeah, well, and more to the point, what a lot of people don't understand, because nobody ever tells anybody this, and at least this is the way I see it, right? Is, so let's say you look at something and you say, okay, I want to do a plant-based diet, or I want to do this type of improvement. And you go get a book or a plan, or like, I want to run a marathon, so I get a training plan, right? What nobody ever fucking tells you is that is a strategy. And so it's general, and it applies to the common average. In order for you to implement it for you, you have to figure out the tactics within it. Right. And the only way you can do that is by experimentation. You have to go through trial and error. And
you have to be honest with yourself.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
That book or that plan, that reference, it's a point of reference. It's a dot in the sand. Even with diet now. So I did 23andMe. I'm adopted. So when somebody says, hey, do you have a history of this in your family or that? I'm like, I don't know. Right. And so I did 23andMe. Some of it is, I've never been interested in finding my biological parents, right? Because people ask me this all the time. Like, what if you met your biological mother? I thank her, right? Because whatever period in time, she made a very difficult decision to say, I'm not in a position to provide the best of everything for this young child, and I want him to have that. And so I was adopted at 8 weeks by an unbelievably gracious set of parents, right? Who set me up for success, especially when you grow up and you hear other people's life stories. Like, there's a lot I missed in a good way, right? That I was shielded from, because, and to me that would be very important to be grateful and gracious about it. But the net of it is, I don't know anything about the genetics I have or anything like that. So having that, and which is interesting in its own right, is led me now. There's a service out there called GenoPalette. And so part of this long-term, I think, the 21st century food strategy or intake strategy, whatever you put in your body, is based on your DNA. Can we tell in what proportion, what macros you need, what foods are never going to be healthful for you, even if they are health foods, right? Hey, don't eat strawberries, right? Or don't eat a banana, right? If that's the thing. But it's not like don't eat steak, right? We all know that in moderation is the key, right? But can we attach that? I personally like what they do. I did it because it was dirt cheap. If you already had you uploaded your 23andMe DNA to that service and they came back. I think they're on their way. I think I'm an early adopter in this, and that they're getting better every time they come out when they iterate with new data for you. I think it's better, but I think that's the future, right? Is saying, but again, that helps you become tactical about it with your strategic vision.
Yeah, right.
The problem with goals is that running a marathon takes time. Right? In life, whatever it is, it's largely there's a marathon involved of some sort: intellectual, physical, emotional, spiritual, and sometimes all of them at once. Right? That's when people start looking for the easy button.
Right.
How do you cut corners to train for a marathon?
You don't,
right? even like, and I was never a big runner. I functionally detest running. It's not my wheelhouse. But I was a swimmer, and when I was a freshman in high school, I knew the only way I could get a varsity letter was to swim the 1,000, because nobody else wanted to swim it. And I grew up on a lake, and I was always long distance swimming. And what we know, so I grew up in the days of USA Swimming. If you want to get better at long distance swimming, swim long distances.
Yeah, right.
We know that's not the case now. You have to have distances, you have to have things, but that's not primarily how you get better. Switching from that USA model to what we call total immersion or long canoe theory, and how you use your legs and how, what that looks like in the water. I was introduced to that probably when I was in my mid 30s, and physically my swimming ability, I thought, was going down. Even though I was one of the better swimmers, I thought my ability was going down, which it was, because you're aging and what your cardiovascular, your VO2 max and everything starts to deplete. The guy, Jeff Utsch, he's an ultra marathon swimmer. He's part of this total immersion community. He's an awesome teacher. He basically said, "Hey, try this." And it changed my life. And if you look at even, I think in the 96 Olympics, Matt Biondi and Alexander Popov swam the 50. The quickest, you're talking, as quickly as you can go. And Biondi won because he took one less stroke, which USA Swimming would have said he lost. Why? Because he created a longer canoe, and he was more efficient. Mm-hmm. Right? And I think whether it's in running or nutrition or anything now, we start every year to neck down and get more efficient. But think what 15 years from now, this seems really efficient today. Right? And we're going to look like savages 15 or 20 years from now for trying the things that we're trying, right? Yeah. But you guys know the whole story of Roger Bannister, right? It's not the story of Roger Bannister. It's the story of the sub 4 minute mile, right? Up until 1958, there was a prevailing thought that the 4 minute mile could never be broken, right? And people just gave up on it, but not Roger Bannister. And he broke the 4 minute mile. Since then, over 20,000 people, including high school students, have broke the 4 minute mile. Why? Because they had a flag in the ground. They had an example that it could be done, right? And because it could be done, other people said, "No, I can better that. I can better that standard." A lot of what we're talking about, whether it's cognitive brain theory, how we fix veterans that have TBI, PTSD issues, and remapping their brain type of thing, whether we're going to do it with chemistry or voltage or magnets or whatever, it's as forward thinking as we can get right now.
Neuralink.
Yeah, exactly. It's all part of your plan, but that's as forward thinking as we can get today. And you need to get out there. I'm not telling people to be ridiculous and just ingest anything and let somebody strap a helmet to your noggin and get working. But there are researchers and organizations doing incredible work to help people out there. And being an early adopter is, I think, critical, right? Because it's going to come from people that they believe in science's ability to do better, right? Mm-hmm. And they have that kind of, theoretical testing mindset that don't make me the placebo group, whatever you do. But I don't want to be that guy, right? And let's go get better, right? And even now with stem cells are the next frontier. With now that they can break down a stem cell into exosomes and endosomes, they can break the blood-brain barrier with a thing and get the stem cells into your brain to do the work. Because before it had to be injected in your spine, and I don't know about you, but I'm willing to be forward thinking, but I'm not willing to go there. Yeah, right. For me personally, right. But I think that's when it's anything in life, and we've kind of gotten on a fitness tirade here for a little bit. But with anything in life, it's do your research and go, how can I be part of the solution, not part of the problem? Yeah. Right. And when these opportunities are put in front of you, is take it. And most people quit because it gets hard. It doesn't get hard; it gets complicated. Right. I think that's more when people say, "Hey, I'm going to quit something." They don't quit because it gets hard. They quit because they get to a fork in the road, and it's not necessarily a fork. It's 8 forks at once, and they got to pick one or two. And if they make a mistake, they got to walk back and start over again.
Well, right? And I think, and we've talked about this before, and I think you guys will agree. To me, that's why motivation will never work long term. You'll run out of motivation at some point. You're going to be tired, or there's another incentive that's competing. That's why discipline's important. You just have to show up and do it. Just keep doing it.
You brought up Jocko earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just a great message. Discipline is freedom, and that's as a tagline. It's not campy. Right?
No,
it is.
No.
Right? It's just like it's it.
It's not puppy dog tails and rainbows, that's for sure.
Right, and it's two things. One, you have to be disciplined. You have to be willing to embrace wholesale change, right? Because if you're trying to achieve a goal, it's something you've never done before. So the behaviors that you think, it's the thing. I buy a book on running a marathon. That's somebody else's experience.
Right.
Well, all of a sudden you figure out, well, you know what? I need chiropractic, right? Because my hips are out. Something's wrong. Every time I run, I tighten up here. Well, I'm tightening up here, and there's a reflex over here. Well, maybe I need to go see chiropractic, right? Or some other thing. And so now that becomes your tactical plan. Is I've got to do this to get back onto my goal.
Right.
You're not sidetracking. You're not doing anything. You're doing the necessary step that you didn't imagine, right, to get it done. Now, I will tell you that I think there's two things they're the two things that are necessary to be great at anything. Aside from the emotional aspects of you can't be fearful and you can't be angry, right? Period. If you're fearful and angry, you're never going to be great, right? But you have to have discipline. But more importantly, you have to have imagination.
Yeah, I would agree.
Right? Because most people fail because they never imagined something would go wrong, right? When Apollo 1 blew up on the pad back in the day, if you go and you listen to the Senate testimony and everything, it's unbelievably frank and candor. There's frankness and candor in a way that you'll never hear people talk anymore. At the time, Walter Mondale was a senator from Minnesota, wanted to shut the program down. He thought it was a waste of money and we should invest in social programs. He didn't have the long-term vision of why exploration was important, right? From coming out of the cave, creating fire, going over the hill, humans are on a trajectory and a glide slope of exploration. And this, why do we go there? Because it's next, right? Not because we got Tang or it created a microwave and all the secondary, consumer effects that happen, which are good. Right? I'm not pooping on it, but that's not why we do it, right?
Right.
So internally, within yourself, you have to have discipline, but you also have to have imagination, because most negative things happen in life because of a failure of imagination. And Frank Borman, who was he was one of the second 7 astronauts. And as eloquent as John Glenn was from the first second, I think he was that guy in the second segment. And he said, do you trust the engineering? Yes. Do you trust, North American aviation? Do you trust this? Yes. Well, then who's to blame? Right? Because that's what Congress does. Like, who's to blame? He's like, we all are. I am. They are. We are. You are. Right? And they're like, well, what happened? Because we had a failure of imagination. That's it. We never imagined that there would be a fire on the pad. We had 1,000 courses of action for what happened out in space, but not one for what happened on the pad, because we never imagined the problem. Well, you can have all the discipline you want, but if you can't have imagination to view outcomes that haven't happened, or to at least say that path is worth exploring, you're then going to limit yourself again.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you miss the opportunity of pivot points.
Right. And I think you then go, well, what's the happiness curve look like? Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because at the end of it, working hard, struggling, what's the satisfaction? What do I get from it? Right. And there's an emotional end to this, right? That I achieved that goal. Dan, you achieved your goal of getting an MBA. You got great satisfaction from that, and you should be very proud of what you did, because you busted your ass for 2 years to accomplish that goal. You had discipline, you had the imagination. It's led you to start doing other things. Why? Because you're on a glide slope of exploration, personally, professionally, and everything else. But what's next? Right? And you're already onto that. But you knew that when you started your MBA, this is my waypoint right now to go do something else. And you might not have it all figured out. In a year, you might go, well, cool, that's really cool, but this is now going to be cooler, right? Because we've heard me say this, I'm always one decision away from the right one.
That's right. That's right.
Because while everybody's sitting around trying to be perfect, I'm going to take one step in a generally known good direction, And when I do, the curvature of the earth changes, my view of the world changes, and it allows me to make better and more concise decisions. Right? That's where people get paralyzed, and then they become hopeless.
Right.
Well, right. As if you look at what you're doing in terms of like a fire, as your fire gets bigger, all of what's illuminated happens to be your ignorance.
Right.
It's all the stuff you don't know yet.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, all the things you're saying. So I've my 23andMe is supposed to show up today.
Yep.
Because I'm looking to determine, what fuel do I need? Because I have a vision of where I want to be in 10 years.
Right.
But I know the vision that may change, and I don't have a problem with my vision changing because it's going to be based on the data that I continue to receive and how I'm going to refine that. But I know largely what I want to be in, as Dan and 2030. I know what I want that to look like.
Right.
How am I going to get it there? Well, if I don't have the proper nutrition, it's not going to matter. If I don't have the proper exercise. And you talked about how you're doing plant-based diets. About 6 months ago, I just started to add a tremendous amount of plant-based protein.
Yep.
Diet.
I can't, like, how I got into vegan proteins is trying to bulk up. Go try to consume 240 grams of protein a day.
Oh.
Right? Because that's what was recommended for my body weight, right? And I just couldn't do it with whey protein or animal-based protein. It just wasn't right for me. So I said, the guys that I get my stuff from at Redcon One, they have a great vegan product. And I tried it and I didn't get bloated. Right. And so that's really when I said, okay, now when you look at these big like power lifters and everything like that, the amount that they have to consume is unbelievable. Right. And so if you're going to say, hey, I want a certain outcome, you have to be realistic about how you're going to get there. And then you have to go, now I'm going to have to be unrealistic about that, because that's the passion, that's the fire, and that's how I'm going to get to the next step, which is what you've decided you want to do.
Yeah. And so I have that process that I'm going through, which is curious, in terms of, oh, you've done, this stuff with the plant. I'm like, well, yeah, I started adding more plant-based protein to my diet. I've started taking a look at, I was never a big bread eater, but when I go to look at bread or something along those lines, I look at, well, what's the source? Is it heirloom wheat or is it
or the unrefined or refined flours, right? That's, I think, the big tipping point. And then you can get snotty about the organic nature of where you get it, right? And like, I think, for me, that was a big thing, was cutting out anything. So I don't drink beer anymore. Both of you guys know I like beer. I love beer. Right? But there's a big reason I don't, because those things were fostering inflammation. And, I don't, to me, it just works. And I said, like, I'm not selling anybody books on it. Right. If Dan say, hey, what's your experience? I'll be glad to share it with you. But, I think it's generally annoying. Right. When people are taking that, and I always look from it's like religion, you doing something because it's against your religion is really cool. And if there's any way I can help you fulfill that, I will. But you telling me what to do because it's against your religion, that's not so cool. Right.
Well,
eating or anything else. But what do the three of us have in common with regards to goals, though?
That I'm helping each of you get to them.
I love you. I do. I absolutely love you. Folks in the audience, this is why the three of us are really good friends, because of that right there. I absolutely love that. No, we're not afraid to let people make fun of us along the way.
Right.
Or to be dissenters or to do anything else. Now, do we plot people's demise every now and again? Dan,
I'm not saying I have a list,
but you're going to say you've got a pivot table on a spreadsheet that correlates name and type of death you wish them to have. But we all do that, right? There's all people that.
In some cases, their path to work.
What's that?
And maybe in some cases, their path to work.
Dan is low jacking the world, right?
No, but I think you're spot on. It's the idea that I want to become this thing, and I don't really. In my 20s, I might have said I don't care what people think, but that's not actually what I meant. I lacked the ability to express the true thought. The real thought is I'm unwilling to sacrifice what I want to be in order to please somebody else's idea of what I ought to be.
Well, I think a lot of it, especially when it's something as personal as food and diet, what you do to do that, right? Everybody wants to look in their mind's eye how they look, right? Both internally and externally, right? And I always say that there's three. You judge yourself by your intent, you judge your friends by their actions, and you judge your enemies by their mistakes, right? And when you level that out, you become a healthier person. And I'm not telling you I can be rage free about people and situations and things, right? Because it would be the biggest lie I've told. But when you start looking at people and thinking, why are people doubting you? And it's not actually, doubt's not the right word. Why are people trying to talk you out of your dream, right? And whether their intent is there or not, or intended action. And food's a big one, right? Well, I couldn't do that. Well, I'm not asking you to do it, right? And I'm not asking you to adopt my lifestyle. I'm asking you to be accepting of it, right? Because what I'm doing is not immoral. It's not, I'm not hurt. It's like, hey, do whatever you want. Just don't hurt anybody else while you're doing it.
Sure.
It's not immoral. It's not illegal. And I'm trying to create a different outcome, right? But especially in relationships, people look at things and they go, well, if I'm not doing that, is that person still going to like me or love me or whatever, right? And so you get, and why does somebody all of a sudden want to be part of my tribe that in this specific that never was before? Or why do they not, right? And it's all okay, but you can't go, oh, I'm not going to do that because somebody else. And it's what it's with education, it's with lifestyle choices and everything else. And like I said, if it's not illegal or immoral, have at it. If you're not hurting anybody, it's the old adage, your rights stop right at the intersection where they start infringing on mine.
Right. Well, and for me, and I think you guys agree, and this is part of this idea of why we are the way we are. Unless we're having a conversation like this where we're just sharing anecdote and experience, I don't feel inclined to comment on somebody else's behavior. It's not even that it's not my business. Dude, I'm busy being me. I'd rather feel inclined to
my energy. I'd rather spend my energy in getting to my 10-year goal.
That's right. That's right. Like like I've said it before, it's that perfect Joe Rogan joke. Do you think Michael Jordan makes YouTube comments?
Yeah.
No, fuck no. He's too busy being Michael Jordan, right?
Right.
I can relate.
Yeah, except you comment all the time.
I get one of the things that I find interesting.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of interesting in food sources, check this out.
Interesting or asinine.
Told you I'd give you guys an update.
There we go.
Is that all of your
is that your 1,000 million?
Yeah, man. Dude, these guys are awesome. So they're pretty much.
Did the herd show up? Nice.
How many?
What's that?
How many have died? How many did you lose?
Two. Yesterday morning. No, and only half the herd showed up, man. This is one of the things that this whole situation, not only the farming but the quarantining as part of it, is really revealing to me is just how piss poor communication can be between human beings, despite our technology. And so, like, half the chickens show up, and we're like, "Where's the other half?" And it's because we did it by breed, and there's a certain count that should be there by breed, and they're not physically the same. It's not like they're all yellow, right? Some are yellow, some are red, some are black and white. You can see it, right? And we're like, what the fuck? And so Mrs. Pittman calls the people, and they're like, oh, well, that breed is delayed 2 or 3 weeks. Well, why? Well, it's just delayed 2 or 3 weeks. Oh, and the other breed, they're called silkies. Remember I told you guys we had the ones that will sit on any eggs, and they're just kind of like hens? Those are the silkies, and they're the black and white. They have like tufts and shit like that. They're not even going to have them at all. And we're like, well, like, are you giving us the money back for those? Because those weren't cheap. You know what I mean? It's just like this extended dialogue where it could have just been, hey, look, we shipped your order. It's going to be light. Here's why. Here's how we're making it up. Perfect. But anyway, so the chicks are doing great, dude. They're all over in the coop. The first 4 we got, they're big. And man, they run around. They run around quite a bit. The other ones we just got, of course, can't be really on their own too much.
When will you start doing your Rocky training and trying to catch one?
Listen, man, I don't know what it is. Well, I do know what it is. My wife and my daughter have spent a lot of time with these chicks. They go over 3-4 times a day to check on them. They're constantly taking care of them. These chickens come to them. Like, they don't have to chase them. So, like, we had a bad storm here yesterday, and we had to go over, and the top of the coop has doors that can raise up to vent, okay? And we had to close those doors. And the first 4 chickens are big enough now. They hop out of the coop that's inside the coop. It's just a box. They hop out and they run around in there. And as soon as my wife opened the big door to go inside, they all just came to her. So you ain't got to chase them. You just got to send my wife or my daughter over there.
Chicken whisperer.
Yeah, man. Well, you know, they're female, so they like taking care of the chickens because they're being motherly. And then the little chicks like it because they're essentially their hen.
Send all your comments, ladies, to @TheRealJPittman.
I don't think I'm saying anything controversial.
I am offended that you would even say something like that.
Well, hey, man. So my point in showing you that in the midst of this whole conversation was, I promised you guys an update. The mealworms are doing great. They're all just about now. There's only a few left in the larval stage, which is the worm. They're almost all now in their pupa stage. They look like aliens, man, like the chest burster aliens from Alien, the movie. That's what they look like, which means I probably got another week before they turn into beetles. And then it's on like Donkey Kong. I have 2 more sets of those structures. And it seems to be working, man. It seems to be working. But when I reran my calculations to make sure my estimates were, somewhat accurate, if not precise, I've started to think, man, I'm gonna have a lot of extra worms. I might try eating them. It's a great source of protein that really doesn't negatively impact anything.
Go ahead.
The chickens love them. The chickens love them, dude. I've given a handful to the chickens just to see if they would eat them. Holy shit. They take them and run around. The other chickens will chase them trying to get it. It's crazy.
Are you gonna have like little live feed video cams inside the coop so we can like go watch the progress?
He's creating its own Instagram feed.
There you go.
We could do that. We could set something up.
Automated.
Yeah. The garden got
# Pittman chicken.
Yeah. Wow, I think they're calling it Rocky Knoll Farms. Don't quote me on that yet, because I think they're still kicking the name around. Something like that. Rocky something Farms. Why? I don't know. There's a lot of rock around here. I know that. What?
Trademark.
You're not that far. Well, you actually are from Rocky Mount, North Carolina. You're a pretty good distance away from that.
Oh, from Rocky Mount? Yeah. Yeah, but this whole area must have been a giant glacier field, because like our house, I sit on an acre for this plot, and my house is in the back, not the front, because they couldn't dig the foundation out for the house in the front part because there's so much rock, dude. There's just rock everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Is it far enough west to be in the Appalachians already?
No. Like if you want to get into the Appalachians, like into it, you got to get into Asheville for me.
Okay.
And that's
what I
maybe.
I didn't think it was that far west. I'm just trying to.
I think Asheville's about an hour and a half. I'm about an hour and a half from Charlotte, and I'm about 2.5 from Raleigh. So that kind of like triangulates you.
Yeah.
I'm on the extreme southwest of Winston.
Okay.
Like I'm technically not.
You're technically not. I was going to switch the topic.
Go ahead.
Interesting. So when you're beer and inflammation, I find it interesting that for me, Guinness doesn't give me anywhere close to that type of inflammation. That like even though I love different like wheat beers, things like that, but I drink any like Belgian beer that is heavily wheat, horrible. Guinness, I have no issues with.
Mother's milk.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, up until 1980, British doctors used to prescribe a pint of Guinness to pregnant mothers because of all the vitamins and minerals in it. And then they're like, well, there's this alcohol thing we got to worry about. And it changed the dynamic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Outside of that, I mean, it's a big reason why I just drink whiskey. I don't have any of those issues at all. Not really a big vodka person, but
I've gone mostly to wine. I'll have vodka every now and again, but I've primarily become a wine drinker. Red wine.
Yeah. Well, and the resveratrol and stuff like that can be good.
Yeah.
Oh, but I'm with you. Like if I have a really strong IPA, I can feel it in my knee the next morning. Like very acute in my knee, I can feel it. Even just one.
Right. And like when we used to, especially when we were at Silent Circle, even it turned into, chicken and bourbon Tuesdays. But like when I have buffalo wings, like this, the spicier, I want an IPA.
Right.
It. It's just I really enjoy that, spicy, buffalo wings with an IPA.
Mm-hmm.
Well, mostly on Sunday nights when you used to come down for dinner from your house to National Harbor. I mean, you'd probably drinking bourbon, and I'd sit there and just have wine. Even back then, because I was like, I was, not gonna tear it up too badly. But it's, now, like I said, it's fuel. Food is fuel, and you gotta. I'm not having weed. I'm having beer. Okay, well let's back that one up one there, Spartacus. Right. Yeah. And get that together. Right. But again, a lot of it is, even like early on when I was taking some of the more aggressive medications for my arthritis, one of the things when you were taking methotrexate is you can't drink because it's very hard on your liver. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And, and so I was talking to one of my buddies, retired team guy, and he was like, come on, have a drink. I said, I can't because the medication I'm taking. He's like, you can just get yourself a new doctor. Right, because you want an outcome, right? He's like, your doctor tells you can't drink. You don't need to not drink. You need a new doctor, right? But the kind of the humorous thing. So the doctor, the rheumatologist I had, her husband was a retired SEAL captain, and one of the things you have to do before you take any of these medications that can be harmful to your soft tissue organs is get a blood test, and they kind of sense where you're at, right? And get a baseline, and so I go in and get issued the medication, all this stuff, and we're having an appointment, how to use it, how to give myself a shot, all this stuff, right? And with no time, because I was like, in case you guys hadn't realized, I used to drink quite a bit. Did the state of my liver ever come up? And I was thinking, part of this liver function is like, man, I don't want to have to hear about this. I know, blah, blah, blah. I'll fix it now because I'm not going to be able to drink, right? As I'm walking out, I go, hey, you didn't bring up my liver at all. And she's like, you got like the liver like a 15-year-old girl. And I'm like,
perfect.
And I go, really? She goes, think about it, dummy. All those T cells, every time your body experienced trauma, it went and fixed it. She goes, you probably never missed a day of school. You were never sick at work. And I said, no, because that's the beneficiary. The beneficial part of having that is you have a really high autoimmune system. Right. You're just never going to deal with the adverse side. And I go, man, I wish I would have known that years ago. She didn't know. He said, if you'd known that years ago, you'd have been dead from drinking, not just because you were probably going, oh man, I gotta clean myself up, right? And it's when you're young and you're partying, you're around a group of people to do that. You're part of that tribe, right? But even now, like I still have a very active autoimmune system, and I think that's once you take control of it and say, I'm not just going to use that I'm not just going to use that advantage I have to allow me to keep exhibiting bad behavior and get a good outcome. Now I'm going to take it, I'm going to clean up, and I want to see what I can do after that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a really important part of life. And I think it's a side effect of being observant and getting older. That's
right.
Perhaps wiser is that there's a set of steps I've taken that got me to where I'm at. And if I don't want to be where I'm at, I can't repeat those steps anymore. Like you're not going to get the outcome different if you keep doing the same things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Jason, have you done something like 23andMe to figure out what kind of what kind of fuel would be most beneficial to you?
No, it's probably something I ought to do. Here's why I didn't do it. Because when I was in California and I had Kaiser, I had access to pretty much any test I wanted, and I didn't need like a genetic underpinning for it. And at that point, I wasn't trying to optimize myself in a way that put me more in harmony with my genetic code, which I probably should now. A, because it's probably a better way to go about what I was trying to achieve. And I don't have access to the Kaiser system. I don't think I have Novant Health here. And my physician is favorable. I'm going to find out pretty soon just how favorable. Or I'm going to find myself a new physician.
You know what? It's funny. You know what I found out kind of along this way, even like with talking about being on a keto type diet or Mediterranean or whatever it is, right? When you start talking to general practitioners, right? That frontline primary care person that is more than anybody in the medical profession leaning on policies of that hospital group, right? Both from a risk perspective and from a money making perspective, right? And so we were talking about food and all these other things when I was getting my last fills. He was looking at my labs. He's like, "Why'd you go get these aggressive labs like this rather than just getting the ones we are?" He's like, "None of this stuff really matters, right?" He just wanted the baseline stuff, right? He's checking a block just to say, that's his job, right? That's just, it's like blaming a compass for pointing north, right? This is the part he plays, right? And he started into me telling, he was basically talking food pyramid stuff, right? And I'm like, all right, here, I'm not going to be disrespectful. But he just kept after it. Like, he's going to change my mind. I'm like, you obviously don't know me, dude. Cause the more you say, the less I'm going to listen. Right. And, I finally said to him, this is the interesting thing. I said, so how long from the day you walked onto a college campus as a freshman till the time you were licensed and allowed to touch another human and dispense medical practice, how long was that? He's like, 10 years. I go, so in that 10-year period, how much time in your educational experience did you spend discussing the relationship between the body and food? And he's like, none.
Yeah.
Right. And I go, okay, so we're going to say right now, I've spent more time contemplating it. Right. And I said, do you want people to walk in here and just go, okay, give me another pill? Or do you want people to be proactive about their health? The hospital is going to tell you, and certainly my insurance company is going to tell me that they want me to be proactive about my health. Think about life insurance now. What are the advertisements? If you can do 50 push-ups, you get a thing. If you can run a 5K, you get a certain, you can get, and so life insurance, it's an actuarial event, right? But now they're saying, look, if non-smokers get a bit discount, right? And all these other things. Now they're assigning fitness goals, right? And with all these smartwatches and everything we have, it's very easy to do that, right? And now we're saying, hey, we're going to positively incentivize people to do this. The problem is when you get into policy and what they view as liability, and people today shop for doctors for a variety of reasons. You know what the number one reason people shop for a primary care, what reason they shop for a primary care physician is? They want someone in their age group that understands. They don't want to go in and have a young kid tell 30-year-old telling a 55-year-old, 60-year-old how to, hey, you have to do this, you have to do that, because they have no basis in the road travel, and they're talking physiology, not the whole human, right? And so a lot of that, whether it's testosterone therapy, whether it's all of these things, it's like, hey, you can. Again, it's people are talking you out of your dream. People are talking you out of the goal. You're like, that's part of the path, whatever it is, whatever choices you make along the way. And they do it under the guise of professionalism sometimes.
Sure, they do. Yeah.
And am I going to consider their opinion because they're a medical doctor and I'm not? Absolutely. Right. But I want to have a conversation and I want to learn. Right. It's like go to the thing. I want to learn. What do you have to teach me? Because I don't know.
And that's what I mean by favorable, to be honest with you. That's what I liked about the Kaiser system. That physician really was like a partner for me. Like, I could go in and say, okay, look, I want this long laundry list of tests that are non-basic. And the Kaiser system was nice because I literally just walked across the hallway and that's where they drew the blood. And by the time I got home, I had some of the results that were fast. And then I could go back and we could actually have a dialogue about, there's, like you talked about testosterone, there's different ways to test it. And depending on which test you get, you're going to get different results. And if you don't understand which one's which, and what the ranges are and all that shit, you don't know. You can really mess things up pretty bad.
Right.
And so I was very specific in the type of test I wanted because I was interested in those results in relationship to everything else I was doing. And, I'm not going to blame him because he wasn't necessarily aware of it. It's not something he normally does. What I liked is he was willing to not only talk to me about it and give me his opinion, but ultimately order what I wanted. So that's what I mean. We'll find out how this physician is. I've gone once just for a general checkup. But yeah. But 23andMe is a really good service, man. I don't have a problem in principle with submitting my data to him.
No, I mean, I don't, because I'm choosing, but also it's everything is about risk. And to me, the reward aspect of this is I'm going to get back and know some things about what I may be, have a predisposition for, and then what things I can start doing right now to make sure that doesn't happen.
Right.
And
also for your kids, man. I mean, because they're half you, right?
Yeah.
Well, especially for me, because I don't what are possible family history things, right? I have no idea, right? And I think you hit the nail on the head. You do owe it to your children in particular to try to figure that stuff out. Now, for me, in assessing risk, is I was a government employee for 20 years. Right? They got samples of everything. If they wants to go missing, it's going to go missing, right? And it's already in the public domain because it's on a government computer somewhere.
Well, and this is where I go back to kind of my position on privacy a little bit, not to change the conversation, but to me, it's part of the calculation is think about how much better off we are as a species because we've gotten science to analyze this data from people. This is one of those situations where as long as everybody's above board about it, more data is not bad.
No, it's not. Here's the thing. I think it's not an issue of privacy and I understand where you come from that, hey, privacy's dead. And to a certain extent, social media and people just, volunteer to have a sociological experience vicariously is what social media has created and why it's addictive, right? There's no dislike button on any social media platform. Right. There's only like there's only varying degrees of good. Right. So I don't look at it as a privacy issue. I look at it as a trust issue. Right? Sure. If that data gets out in the public domain, what can be done to subvert the trust that I have in a system to work?
Sure.
Right? Can you say that because I have X, Y, and Z, in my DNA, I'm no longer insurable? Right. What's the conversation about that? Right. Mm-hmm. Because there's legal, there's policy, there's big pharma, there's, big medical industry and everything else. Right. All the politics and everything that goes with that to get to an outcome. Right. So for me, it's hey, if this in any piece of data that I want to hold dear, it's if that's out in the public domain and trust is subverted. Right. Because in order to say, hey, privacy is not a big thing anymore. I think you have to trust fellow man to an extent that most people are unwilling to do, because certainly government, everybody else hasn't shown us that they're good stewards of that trust. I mean, nationwide insurance right now, if you have a pit bull, they will not insure you.
Right.
Because here's the thing. We blamed in the 70s and 80s, we blamed Dobermans, we blamed Rottweilers, we blamed German Shepherds. Now we blame pit bulls. You think it's the dogs or you think it's the humans?
Right.
I mean, to me, it's like these are the things that make me go apoplectic because, again, somebody's pushing an easy button and saying, oh, if you have this type of animal thing, are you telling me that owning that type of animal makes me irresponsible? Or are you saying that because I have that animal is a danger to everybody out there? If you've raised a pit bull from a puppy and never exposed it to the bad side of it, they're the most loving dogs on earth. They were a family dog for the longest time.
Yeah. So would you be okay with Michael Vick owning like a miniature pinscher?
No, he hasn't. He hasn't proved that he's a good steward of the trust to not harm animals. Right.
I agree.
Right. I mean, here's the thing. We grant people this trust, right? And go hang out at the shelter, go hang out at an SPCA and listen to the intake right? When they're bringing in pets. Well, why are you dropping this pet off? Well, we're going on vacation, right? And I'm not allowed to choke somebody out and throw them on the ground because of that. It's like, you're going to remand a dog because you're going to go on vacation for 2 weeks?
Right.
Like, we have kennels. Like, get your shit together, people. Right? I get viscerally angry with that. I could never stand behind that desk.
No, I'm with you. It's a basic lack of respect for life, you know?
Yeah. It's the old Tombstone thing. Like when they're, in the Tombstone movie, they're dragging the horse up and they're cracking it with the whip. And, Kurt Russell turns around and smacks the guy. He goes, hurts, don't it? Right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's the same thing. Like what's the public trust? Right? And even something as simple as owning a dog.
Right.
Right. And
it's a great example.
Yeah. And parents ignore some really, like, if your kids are mean to animals, right? We gotta, you need to step up, like, and step in, right? Because there's, that's a big sign, right? And you don't want to wait until you're watching CNN and there's armed conflict going, hey, look, that looks like my kid.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, because that's like in the top 3 of every checklist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably not the right time to know that your child doesn't like, animals.
He was a quiet man. No kidding. He was plotting the death of 30 people. He had a lot of crap going on in his head.
That's hard work.
Right. You know what I mean? And it's not like there's not, but in life, right? I mean, as an adult, as a leader, like, and it's not something as obviously as to that, but what's happening to people around you, good and bad. And how are you going to be a positive influence on that, right? And again, Dan, so the same thing. It's like we walk a path, right? And some people will get envy is not the right word. But they look at what you're doing and they're saying, and it's not that they're envious of what you're doing; they're envious that you're doing.
That's right.
Right? That I'm making a systemic change in my life. Right? Now, why am I doing this? Right? I like to talk to some people, like, especially with education, like, why are you pursuing this degree? Right? And I love to hear that. Right? I think, I think anything you can do to be more well-educated is good. But an MBA is a funny thing to me with the art of the why you want to get one. Right? And Dan, having been in industry long enough, or for as long as you have a very defined vision of why you want this, where you want to go. And it's another piece of the puzzle. I have folks that I've talked to, and while they don't exactly say it this way, it's, if I have this, people have to listen to me and let me in the room.
Yeah, right.
It has nothing to do with education. It has everything to do with letter grabbing so that people will listen to you. Right. I have in the military, it's the same way. People are like, oh, I got to get promoted. I got to get to this next rank, because if I get to a certain rank, they have to listen to the rank. And I was like, well, why don't you just be competent and they'll listen to you? Right. You're spending all of your time in the appearance of competence and working at the appearance of it rather than intentionally being competent. Right. And that's a very hard thing. Right. Because all of us don't live up to that measure at some point going on. It's like, I know enough. Right. For right now, I can slide along, I can coast along. Right. And it's what people, I think, is, as you get older, folks get lazy. They're like, oh man, I only got 5 years. I'm going to retire. Why do I want to go learn something new?
Right.
Well, because there's something new to learn, and it's fucking cool to do it.
It's when I first started off on my degree path, in many ways, I would say there's still a piece of truth to this, even with my MBA. It wasn't so to get people to listen to me, but it was more so that it was a box filled on someone else's checklist that they couldn't say, oh, well, you don't have this, so you are disqualified from X.
Right.
So there was absolutely a piece of that from my undergrad to master's, doctorate, right? But, that was just a piece of it. And I think if they're being honest with themselves in some ways, if they have a vision, they would say that that's true. Because I could certainly, if I just wanted to be an engineer and a security engineer, something like that, I could just get certifications.
Yeah.
Certifications is a skill to show expertise in a particular job function.
Right. It shows the language of that job, right? You know the language of that job, and in a tribe of people that are all working for a same goal. You can speak the same language walking in to start a certain level.
Well, and for me, I don't have a need to be heard. Like, it's not a motivation for me. I like to tell stories, and so I try to find groups of people that like listening to the stories I like to tell. That's really it.
Yeah, I think I fall more into that category.
Yeah, I think so.
You want to help people, right? Because you're an educator, so you obviously want to help people. And how do you do it, right? And I think I got better as a public speaker and being out there once I started off with a story. Right? It's the pathos piece of Aristotle. And I think that's usually important, right? And I mean, even in college, you don't make them turn their cell phones off, right? They can vote with their thumbs. If they're not finding interest in what you're teaching them, they're just going to go pick up their cell phone, and you're not going to say anything.
Yeah,
they paid their money. They're in the room, right? And I was, when I get to the talk, I get on stage, and I'm in a 3-minute race to get them interested enough not to pick up their phone.
Right.
Right. And I think it's not about that. It's about making sure that they're getting the best that I can give them and something that they're going to find interest in enough not to be a squirrel.
That's right. Whew, man, that's an hour of nothing that we said we were going to talk about.
And strangely enough, it seems to come out better that way sometimes.
Sometimes we hit it, sometimes we don't.
Yeah.
I would just like to point out that it wasn't my fault this time.
It actually wasn't.
No, it wasn't me. I started talking before we got on air about something we all found it interesting. We went there. I'll raise my hand. It's mine.
How prophetic that you're in the visual slot that usually Dan is in.
I know.
Yeah, maybe that is the spot.
Maybe that's the disruptor corner.
We're gonna put Jason. Jason's gonna be over here next week. we gotta finish our blind taste test on this one and see how it goes.
Well, one time when we're live, I need to test because I can remove you from the stream, which would allow me to switch the order of us. But I don't know if that completely kicks you out. You'd have to reconnect. I'd have to test it. I'll test it later. I'll let you know. But it is time for
chicken wrangling.
Chicken wrangling. Yep.
Get your Rocky exercising on.
They're fast little fuckers, man. That's why I like these mealworms. They ain't too fast and they don't really do much.
They're not too fast.
No, you just grab by a handful.
Oh man, I was hurting my mealworms and they just wore me out today. Like, what?
Oh man. Yeah, maybe next week I'll have some beetles to show you.
You might.
Rock on.
All right, everybody. Have a great week.
Everybody have a great week.
Talk to you later. Bye.